I want to ask you something, and I'd like you to look at it with me very, very seriously. Not just as an intellectual game, but as something that touches our actual daily lives. Most of us, perhaps all of us, if we are really honest, are frightened. We live with a pervasive background hum of fear. Don't we? Our life is so profoundly uncertain, and it feels especially so right now because all the old structures we relied upon seem to be cracking. There is the obvious uncertainty of our livelihood, the anxiety that in a world of automation, outsourcing, and economic tremors, we might simply be left behind. You may have a job today, but the ground feels unsteady, doesn't it? Then there is the larger global uncertainty, the shadow of wars, the constant grinding pressure of political and ecological crises, the sheer enormity of opposing powers and ideologies that makes us wonder what is all going to come out of it. We are politically, economically, and socially anxious. And that word anxious is just a more polite, a more sophisticated word for what it actually is. We are frightened. And this fear isn't just external. Physiologically, biologically, we are afraid. We fear illness, the decay of the body, the sudden diagnosis that will change everything. Again, there is this deep-seated fear. But where it truly lodges itself, where it builds its fortress, is inwardly, psychologically. And this psychological fear has so many branches, doesn't it? It's a hydra with 1,000 heads. There is the gnawing fear of loneliness, the terror of being left, of having no one, of ending up utterly isolated. We live in a world more connected than ever, with devices in our pockets that link us to billions, and yet have we ever felt so profoundly alone? Out of this fear, we cling, we demand, we become jealous. Then there is the fear of not succeeding, of being a failure. This is the poison of our time, isn't it? We scroll through the curated lives of others, the endless images of success, beauty, and happiness, and we are gripped by the fear that we are not enough, that we haven't made it, that we are falling behind in a race we never even agreed to run. And perhaps deepest of all, the fear of not being loved, whatever that word may mean to us, the fear that if anyone saw us as we truly are, they would turn away in disgust, fear of the dark, fear of the future, fear of the past. You know the litany. It is an enormous, suffocating blanket. Now, I want you to consider something quite extraordinary. If you, in your heart, were truly, completely free of this fear, good Lord, can you imagine it? If you were free, what need would you have for a guru? What need would you have for an external authority, a priest, an ideology, or a savior to tell you what to do, what to believe, and how to live? The entire structure of our search, our desperate clinging to systems and beliefs is built upon this foundation of fear. We are frightened, and so we want someone to take our hand and lead us to safety. If you were not afraid, you would be a marvelous human being, an integrated, whole, and intelligent person. So we are going to find out, inquiring together, Not you listening to me and accepting what I say, but you observing your own mind as I speak, whether it is possible for a human being to have no fear whatsoever, both physically and psychologically. Are you interested in this? Please, I'm not asking for your encouragement. I'm not here to perform. I'm asking if you are, in yourself, deeply, seriously interested in finding this out, because to live under the shadow of fear is the most appalling thing. It is a life lived in darkness. It brings with it a sense of shrinking, of constant contraction and isolation. When you are afraid, you cannot be open, you cannot love, you cannot see clearly. You withdraw, and from that withdrawal, from that fear, all kinds of neurotic actions are born. Our anxieties, our compulsions, our rigid beliefs, they are all rooted in this withdrawal. And this isn't just a mental state, it reacts psychosomatically. The mind poisons the body, and the body, in its discomfort, deepens the mind's fear. It is a terrible, vicious cycle. So, if you are at all serious about living a different kind of life, a life that has meaning, you must go into this very, very deeply. You must find out for yourself, not because I say so, but because your own suffering demands it, if fear can ever end. So let me ask you, are you aware of your fear? This is not group therapy, you understand. We are not here to confess our fears to one another and feel a momentary comfort in shared misery. That is meaningless. That's just another escape. I am asking you as an individual, sitting there, listening, are you aware of your own fears? Not the abstract concept of fear, but the actual pulsing physiological and psychological fact of it as it lives in you. And if you are aware, do you also see the consequences of it? Do you see how the moment you feel it, the mind immediately begins to run? We run away from it by turning on the television, by scrolling through our phones, by seeking distraction. We rationalize it, finding sophisticated intellectual reasons for why we should be afraid. We suppress it. We try to be brave, which is just another form of resistance. Or we avoid any situation that might trigger it, shrinking our lives down to a tiny, safe corridor. All these escape mechanisms, these identifications with a country, a belief, a person, they only make the fear greater because the thing we are running from is always with us. So, we see the consequences. We see the neurotic actions that spring from this withdrawal, this shrinking of our lives caused by fear. Now, what is the root of it? I am not asking what you are afraid about. We've seen the branches: fear of your boss, fear of future, fear of loneliness, fear of what someone might discover about you. Those are the symptoms. But I am asking, what is the root of all fear itself? Do you want to find out, or are you waiting for me to give you an answer? You see, this is the first trap, isn't it? If I give you an answer, if I say the root of fear is X, what have you got? You have accepted a new idea, a new piece of information, and you will store it in your memory and perhaps quote it later. But you will have moved away from the fact of your own fear. You will have a concept, and the concept is never the real thing. The word water cannot quench your thirst. So, you must ask this question for yourself, not expecting an answer from anyone, least of all me. You have to ask yourself, what is the root of this enormous, pervasive sense of fear that poisons our relationships, that dictates our activities, that follows us to our jobs, and that projects a shadow over our entire future? But how do you ask this question? This is all important. Are you asking it intellectually as a philosophical puzzle you'd like to solve? Or are you asking it with your whole being, with an urgency that demands to find out because you see with total clarity that living with fear is living in a kind of prison? Are you asking in order to totally cut the root? Or are you merely asking in order to trim the branches? I wonder if you see the difference. Let me explain what I mean. I can find out the various causes of my fear, and that's fairly simple, isn't it? I'm afraid because I've done something in my past that I shouldn't have done, and I'm terrified you might discover it, which means my image, the me I project to the world, will be shattered. Or I'm afraid I might lose my job because I need the security, the status, the money. Or I'm so terribly attached to my wife, to my partner, that I feel she might at any moment leave me, and I am frightened of the appalling loneliness that would follow. We can trace all these little lines of cause and effect. But are we actually in contact with the fear itself, or are we only in contact with the idea of fear? This is a very important question, so please look at it. Which is it for you? Is it the actual, raw, physical sensation of fear? Or is it the thought about fear? Often, what we are in contact with is merely the idea, the memory. We think I am a fearful person, which is a conclusion, an idea, a judgment based on past experiences. But the actual fact of fear is a present tense biological reality, the tightening of the stomach, the shallow breath, the racing heart. The idea is just a ghost, but we give it life by thinking about it. And this is why, if you are taking notes right now, I must ask, for the love of understanding, please stop. If you are writing, you are listening with only half your mind. You are trying to capture the idea to think about later. But the issue is not later, the issue is now. The problem is not writing down a description of fear, but to be in direct contact with the fact of it as it is happening. Now, seeing this fact, what is our usual response? We try to investigate it, we try to analyze the cause, don't we? We trace the sequence. I am afraid because of this, which happened because of that. We believe that if we can dig deep enough into our past, into our conditioning, we can unearth the original cause, and by understanding it, we will be free of it. This is the entire promise of so-called analysis. But analysis, has it ever solved your fear? Has it ever solved anyone's fear? Fundamentally, it may help you adjust, to cope, to become a more functional, less problematic citizen. But does it end the fear? It does not. And we must ask why. Why doesn't analysis work? It doesn't work for a very simple and yet profound reason. The analyzer thinks he's different from the thing he's analyzing. You understand? When I say I'm going to analyze my fear, I have created a division within myself. There is I, the analyzer, the one who is looking, the one who is sane, rational, and in control. And there is fear, the thing being analyzed, the problem, the neurotic element that must be fixed or discarded. But is this true? Is the analyzer, the I, the thinker, actually different from the fear? Or is the analyzer himself a part of the fear? Is not the I who is looking, the I who is trying to control, built from the very same memories, anxieties, and desires that create the fear? The analyzer is the analyzed, and because we have created this false division, we have introduced the element of time. Analysis implies an endless process. You have to analyze today, tomorrow, and the next day. You dig into your childhood, then your adolescence, then your relationships, and at the end of your life, you are still analyzing, you are still digging, but you have not brought about a fundamental transformation. You are still afraid, whereas if you observe, just to observe, that is an entirely different action. Analysis is entirely different from observation. Analysis is a positive action. It implies a doer, a motive, a direction, an accumulation of knowledge. But observation, as I mean it, is a negative action. It is to look without the observer. It is to look without the analyzer. It is to look without any analysis whatsoever, to just look. This observation is not a passive, detached intellectual exercise. It is the most active and potent form of attention. When I speak of negative action, I mean an action that is not born of a positive conclusion or a motive. The positive action is to analyze, to do something about the fear, to fight it, to suppress it, to run from it, all of which involves the me who is trying to operate on the fear. But this negative action, this pure observation, is to look at the fear without any movement of thought. It is to watch without any intention to change it, without any desire to go beyond it, without any judgment that it is bad or wrong. You just watch. It's like a scientist looking through a microscope at a living cell. If the scientist comes to it with a conclusion, with a hypothesis, or with a desire to use that cell for some commercial purpose, he's projecting his own mind onto it, and he will never see the cell as it actually is. He will only see his own conclusions reflected back at him. But if he has no hypothesis, if he is not dictating what it should be, and he simply looks with an intense, quiet, alert attention, then that very observation allows the cell to reveal its own movement, its own life, its own change. This is what I am asking you to do with your own fear. Can you watch it so closely, without any sense of direction or motive, that the thing you are watching, the fear itself, begins to undergo a fundamental change? This is not a theory. When you observe in this total way, the observation itself is a movement of change in that which is being observed. You don't have to do anything else. The very act of this choiceless, non-analytical, non-judgmental looking is the action that dissolves the me who is separate from the fear. And are you doing it now as you listen? Or are you just agreeing with me intellectually? Can you watch your fear in this manner? This doesn't need practice, which is one of our most cherished illusions. Practice implies time, doesn't it? I will practice today so I can be free tomorrow. That is just more analysis, more division, more time. If you are truly passionately interested, if you are genuinely concerned with being free from this appalling burden of fear, you don't practice observation. You observe with the full intensity of your being. Now, it is an immediate, urgent action. So, can you observe the root of fear, which we are about to go into, without any analysis at all? Now, let us look together. What is the root of all fear? Not just your particular fear, but the very foundation upon which all fear grows. What do you think it is? Is it not time? Just look at it. Don't accept my word for it. Look at your own mind. I might be ill. That is the future. I might lose my job. That is the future. I am afraid of what I did in the past, and I might be discovered. The action is past, but the fear is about its future consequence. I am afraid of death, which is a projection into a future that has not yet come. I am afraid my wife might get angry, might leave me. It is always might, will be, tomorrow. Fear is the movement of the mind away from the what is of the present into an imaginary future based on its memories and experiences from the past. All that is a movement which we call time. And what is this movement of time? What is the engine that drives this projection from the past into the future? Is that movement not thought? Thought is time. Look, I think I might lose my job. I think my wife may discover what I've done. I think I will be lonely. Thought, which is the response of memory from the past, projects a possibility, a danger, or a pleasure into the future, and that projection creates either hope or fear. Fear is the non-acceptance of what is now, because thought has created an image of what might happen in the future. So, the root of fear is time, and the very substance of time is thought. Now, can you observe this movement of time, which is thought, which is the root of fear? Can you observe it without trying to stop it, without trying to control it, without trying to do anything about it? This is the real test. It is like the scientist looking through the microscope again. If he projects what the cell should be, if he dictates, if he has a hypothesis, the cell remains as it is, frozen by his conclusions. But if he has no hypothesis, if he is just looking, that very thing at which he is looking begins to move, to change, to reveal its own nature. Are you doing this? This means observation implies the total absence of the observer. The observer is the past. The observer is the me, who is the bundle of all his theories, conclusions, hopes, fears, directions, and memories. To look without the observer, without the me, is to look with a completely fresh mind. This does not need discipline. It does not need practice. It just needs you to see the truth of it, to look without your wanting something out of it. If you so look with that alertness, that passion, that complete attention, then you will see for yourself that the very root of fear is beginning to completely change. It begins to dissolve. not because you have fought it, not because you have analyzed it, but because you have shed the light of complete undivided attention on it. And in that light, the darkness of fear simply cannot exist. This is the action of negation. You are not adding a new method or a new belief. You are negating the entire structure of the me who creates the fear in the first place. This is meditation. Meditation is not repeating some Sanskrit words, sitting quietly cross-legged for 20 minutes in the morning, or following some system. That is all just more nonsense, more escape, more cultivation of experience. How can a mind possibly meditate if it is full of fear? How can it be quiet if it is attached to something, terrified of losing it? The understanding and the freedom from fear is the very beginning of meditation, and it is totally, entirely related to your daily life. It is not something separate from it. It is a transformation of it.